All right, we're back this week. Podcast 75, so we're starting to chug along. I'm going to have a big party, I think, at 100, huh?
Yeah, podcast all day long.
Podcast party.
24-hour podcast.
So today we're going to dive into, it's kind of a new trend, and Kate was talking about this earlier, and we'll see where this goes, but there's a big trend actually away from high-intensity exercise, and the pendulum kind of swings, with trends and things to like low intensity, even with like tempo lifting. You're seeing a lot of people come out of CrossFit doing a lot of walking, things like that. And you had some thoughts on it, and I'm sure Dave and I do too. But I'll let you kind of kick it off and just tell us like what you've seen, pros and cons to both, and how we can maybe marry them,
Yeah. So I feel like the trend really stemmed from what I saw, particularly in women with maybe under eating and doing these high intensity workouts or just under eating in general. And so I think it stems from more like metabolism, I guess, damage, and they would feel that. So this, is kind of going back again to like the show days, and their body isn't responding to workouts the same. It's not responding to their diet the same. So they're like, okay, I've got to change things up. I'm going to go get a blood panel done. And their thyroid hormones are off. Their adrenals are off. Their cortisol levels are heightened. So, a really common thing I hear is like adrenal fatigue. When really I think, they care about that. These people care about that, but I think it's more like, hey, I'm gaining weight. I don't feel good. How can I switch up everything I'm doing to kind of get back on track? And I think the real issue was maybe not even so much in the workouts. Maybe that needed to be changed a little bit, but I think it was more like restricting food and being at a calorie deficit and working out really hard, whether that's CrossFit or bodybuilding or, whatever cardio you're doing. It's just like prolonged calorie restriction causes all these other issues. So, I've just kind of heard about it for years, and I think it gained some popularity probably like in the beginning, like around 3 to 5 years ago. And we're seeing a lot of like athletes, and it doesn't have to be just women, but men, women, and, anyone. I think women just tend to maybe restrict a little bit more their calories than men so much. But the blood work will show your thyroid is off, for whatever reason. Hormones are low and your adrenals are off, but I'm not sure the workouts are to blame. I think it's just more prolonged calorie deficit. So I guess that would be my argument, to not just do a whole 180 with your workouts. And then it seems that, this lower intensity work seems like it would be positive, but it's just another way for these people to be extreme. So I'll go on a walk. That's like a 2.5 hour walk. Mm-hmm. And then I'll lift weights for like 2 hours. And so it's a lower intensity, but it's still very extreme and not healthy. So then I see these people like kind of stuck in this, everything's off for years. And really the root of all this is everything they're doing is extreme and not very healthy. And I think you can do lower intensity exercise in a healthy way. I think you can do higher intensity exercise in a healthy way. But I just think that like we're focusing maybe on one component that isn't necessarily this entire picture.
Yeah, I think that's a lot you just threw out there, but I think generally what you're saying is right on the money, and a lot of it's dose dependent. So intensity, we talk about that in CrossFit. That's the shortcut to results. So you work out hard and intensely, and that's why CrossFit works so well, is you don't need to spend hours in the gym if you are executing well on, the principles and what we're supposed to be doing. You're moving your whole body through full ranges of motion, and you're getting a lot of work done fast. It causes your body to want to adapt and change in a really favorable way. But what we have to do, I think, is really, and I think programming in general, and Dave and I have kind of chatted about this, from where we all kind of started in CrossFit and where it's evolved to is, it's gotten smarter in the way that it's not just a fire hose of intensity every day. Yeah. And, today's workout in our CrossFit class is a great example. We've got it's rowing, running, sled dragging, and farmer's carry. And it's an intentional way to actually pull down that intensity a little bit and slow you down. So you're not just burning white hot, 5-6 days a week. And, intensity at that level, at a really high level over and over again, it becomes unsustainable at a certain point. So you have to back off of that intensity at a certain point. And so I understand, like, I've ran myself into those issues where I'm just going hard every day. And then I might have to take months where I back off, I'm slowing down, doing some weightlifting, letting my body recover, letting my nervous system kind of calm down. And I think that can be a really good tool. But to just switch your whole philosophy on, like, this doesn't work and then this does work, I think is a little bit of a flawed way of thinking.
Yeah. I think in general, like a lot of those old school, like the girl wads and like the benchmark ones, they're all like kind of 2 to 7 minute workouts. And that is hard. I mean, I think those, from a programming perspective should be introduced more as like tests, right? It's a test of fitness. It's an event. Rather, they're not necessarily like your everyday training things,
yes,
right? So everyday training is a little bit more sustainable. It's lifting. It's doing some aerobic work. It's doing some EMOMs. You're introducing rest. You're doing not all this intensity packed into one because it's generally a good rule of thumb is hard cardio is hard on the body. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard in your body. So introducing some rest in there, doing some tempo work and not everything where it's so fast and hard all the time. Because generally, too, the faster you go, the form is not really on your mind. I mean, it should be, right? You should be able to do. I think were we talking about this the other day? You were talking about like doing Fran, like when we were going over to our coaches meeting. You can certainly do it with crappy form and do it really, really fast. But really, is that anything to base a standard on of yourself, right? So it should be, done with 99% accuracy if you can, the fastest way you can.
Yeah, it's retestable that way.
Yeah,
you can't retest less than optimal form. So, and like I was saying, like earlier, before I'd even been in a CrossFit gym, I had done Fran and I don't think it was horrible or anything. I think I was generally getting my chin over the bar but I just remember racing it with like probably the thrusters, the depth might not have been there or I'm flashing a lockout or something. Yeah. And if you get a good time like that, good luck beating it anytime soon because, or when you get your form dialed in. So really working on like maximizing like your mechanics before that intensity, I think that helps too, as far as like not blowing yourself out in CrossFit, and in intense forms of exercise too fast.
Yeah. There's a reason why in that CrossFit methodology going back, it's the last component to happen is the intensity, right? You got to learn how to move well consistently. You have good technique, and then intensity is the last portion there.
Yeah.
If you do that before the others, your CrossFit career probably not last long. You're gonna be hurt.
I think to Kate's point too, where I think some people, myself included, a little bit, and when you get into CrossFit, the nutrition becomes a big part of it. And you may go and what they were advocating, and they do much less now. You don't see or hear it pushed at all. It was a paleo zone diet, which generally was pretty low in any sort of like starchy carbohydrates. And when you're doing really hard weightlifting, breaking down muscle, really intense cardio, with a real lack of carbs, real high protein fat sort of diet, that creates like a big brain fog, kind of like adrenal fatigue sort of feeling. I remember running into that and I remember this huge switch. I was just like, man, I am like dizzy. And this was early on. And it was kind of when we did that sectional. I was shredded, but I was just like, I'm like out on my feet after every workout. I just remember simply adding sandwiches as my lunch with like bagels to it and feeling like 100% better and then performing way better in the next competition I did at the regional or whatever it was, coming up.
I mean, if you're eating lean meats and like low starch, like carbs, things like that, like you have no energy stores, right?
No.
I mean, it would be probably good for like someone who wasn't very active, right?
Yes.
Or had a very low level activity, right? Just to limit the amount of calories and carbs they're getting in. But if you are an athlete that needs to fuel your body, you can have some fat or carbs in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of something I think we've learned at this point.
Yeah.
Especially if you're really lean, because you just don't have any energy stores.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a physique competitor, I mean, yeah, you can be low fat, but like if you rely on your performance as an athlete, I mean, you don't want to be probably below 6 or 7 as a guy. Like you want to be probably closer to 10. You'll find athletes performing better at that fat percentage than down by 6. You run out of juice.
100%.
You're just sore. You have no padding, right? I mean, your just joints get sore and stuff. So.
You see injuries pop up and cramps. You'll see it in football players. A lot of those guys, I mean, they're shredded. They're really active. But I don't know. I was watching a football game and I mean, it was a receiver, someone who's just like, they mentioned it. Like he was so lean. And then like you just saw his leg or something seize up on him. And like he just didn't have, like he needed probably he needed to eat a sandwich. Yeah.
Some bacon.
he needed a meal, like he was a phenomenal athlete and, just completely peeled, ripped, but he looked like he needed to eat a touch more and maybe have a little bit of fat. Generally being pretty dang lean is where most of us need to head towards that.
It's a very extreme, I think, point to get to have that happen.
To be too lean. 99% of us do not have that issue, but
yeah. And I think, just something else I wanted to point out is like, any extreme, so that could be extreme in endurance athletes might start to have adrenal fatigue, just the wearing out their body over time. And I actually got tested when I worked at Lifetime because we were starting to sling a lot of supplements they wanted us to sell. And I had adrenal fatigue. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, I haven't slept a full night in years. And I drink 2 venti Starbucks and take ephedra every day. Like, I mean, I'll take these supplements if they're free, but I don't know that we need to go out. I don't know that it's necessary to go out and put more things into your body. I think if you just naturally like learn to take your stress level down, learn to take your caffeine down, try to sleep more, it would all even out, and for me, it was just eating a little bit more as well. But I think, what we don't look at now is just how much stress we have outside of our workouts. So
what are you talking about?
And we put it all on ourselves. It's stupid.
Yeah,
I mean, where, just with social media and like trying to do too much or the comparison thing or whatever that is, it's not helpful. And I don't know that it's really like our workouts that are doing it. I think it's just like mental stress and kind of leading your life in a way that's not really healthy for you mentally too.
That's just a compounding effect of different parts. The gym and workout can be stressful. It's a good stress, but if you have too much stress on the outside too, and then you're doing more stressful things in the gym, it just kind of keeps adding up. That's kind of, we've talked about before about doing longer workouts that are less stressful. Or sometimes if you are feeling stressed out, sometimes a very high intensity workout can be the last thing you want because it just seems more stressful.
Yeah. I remember feeling like that with benchmark workouts, especially when you have scores and times to compare to, and you've got a lot of stress like outside of the gym going on, and then getting kind of nervous before a workout and like wanting to execute in a certain way. And I'm like, I don't know if this is the best thing, or even having a really high-end competitive goal. I like to compete in things, even like small, like whether it's 5Ks and different little, like every year I'll usually compete in like the open or the pump and run or some sort of little event. But sometimes I'll find myself going event to event or thing to thing to have to kind of work towards. And there's certain times where you need to not probably do that because the intensity of the workouts will be high and it's not going to actually serve you in life right then. Like always having a mountain to climb is not always helpful, I think, you know, and being able to just sit and be cool with like who you are and, you know, maintaining for a while can be a good thing and will serve you at certain times. I think doing that too long, you'll get complacent and you'll find your fitness and health starting to decline. So it's always like, you've always got to play that game. Nothing is static. Nothing ever stays the same over time. You do low intensity exercise for too long, it will stop working well. And you are going to have to add, you know, some sprint intervals in there, some rowing sprints, some hard CrossFit workouts to like get things going. You'll feel it the second you do it. You're like, holy crap, my body's changing super fast from this new stimulus. Yeah, I think you have to find that there is a way you can marry the two, I think, you know, with a few and I try to do that with our CrossFit programming as much as I can. But what inevitably you find when you do only the CrossFit workouts every day is you're going to push them as fast as you can. So having a day where maybe you go on a walk, a long bike ride, hit the barbell side, do some tempo weightlifting, I think can really help people if you feel like you're starting to get fatigued, tired, and things aren't really working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just even approaching class workouts. Like some days you feel the need to push hard or feel like you want to compete or be the first done or things like that. But just being okay with Sundays being like, I'm just going to focus. I know it's kind of one of those things that I'm just going to focus on my technique today, like kind of sandbagging it. But there is a day where you can just feel, I'm just going to move well. I'm just going to move around. I'm going to go lighter weight. And I'm just going to use this time that was a little bit, not recovery, but I'm just going to have this be a lower intensity and just be okay with, you know, coming in the middle of the pack or last, but I'm just going to take my time because that's kind of what my body's calling for right now. And that's 100%. Okay too. And some days you can push it harder, but not always feeling that. This is kind of the double-edged sword of CrossFit. It's a very motivating environment to be in, but sometimes it can be too much. So you're just constantly competing and comparing yourself to others when you should just really be listening to your body and use that motivation when you need it, but just be able to draw back and be okay sometimes with that feeling like you don't, like there's not a pressure to like always be the best you can be, you know?
I think what is challenging, and I'm sure you ran into this when you were programming for your gym is I like off the clock workouts.
Yeah.
And planning those. And everyone who shows up really enjoys them when they come in.
Like on the minute, sort of.
Whether it's an EMOM or like a skill day where you're like holding positions, like you're going to hold a handstand hold or hold your chin over the bar, you're doing Turkish get-ups. When people come to those classes, they always enjoy them, and it's a very welcome change of pace. I think the challenge is people will see them and maybe not see, like, is that going to accelerate my strength on a back squat, or is that going to get me faster on a workout? And attendance might drop for that. Or there's movements that are tricky or uncomfortable, and they might not come. So I try and sprinkle them in, but I'm leery of doing it maybe as much as I would actually like to. And it's just something that I've always got to play with, like how to dose that the right way, because I think more of those is actually probably a good thing. One thing I do that is a very popular day is I'll have
pizza day.
We had that yesterday.
For the kids.
They're workouts where they're kind of off the clock, but it's like a strength sandwiched into a workout. So it's like every 5 minutes you're going to row, do ab mat sit-ups or toes to bar, and then you're going to build on a front squat off the deck, which is a limiting factor because it's limited by your power clean. So, you know, it's just, 3 front squats at the end of each round. You have 5 rounds of that. It's like a new round every 5 minutes. You probably have about 2 minutes to rest before the next minute. And you build, and you end up hitting a moderately heavy front squat. But the way it's set up, it governs, about how hard you can go. You're limited by a power clean, and everyone loves those days, and they work really effectively. But again, like I'm only so creative where I can only come up with so many ways to do that.
Yeah,
you know?
it's when you're structuring something for a lot of people and you have an idea of the stimulus you want, like it's a little backed off and it's a little limiting, and you put some governors on stuff and you want some rest there. Like it gets really tricky of like, how do I organize this in a way to get the result for a lot of people that I want without pushing them too hard? So that it does take a little bit of creativity and thought. Sometimes what we experimented before years ago at our gym was doing some workouts where like I wouldn't even run the clock.
Yep.
Whether it was rounds for time or like it would be an AMRAP, but I'm like, we're not going to score this. And because I really just want them to focus on quality, I'm like, you can move as fast as you safely can. Like, so intensity is not the focus. It's about trying to move well and being very present in that. But I feel like people were, without that kind of measurement or something running, they just didn't, like, they were like lost, which was like, I didn't want that either. But you like, it's like 5 rounds for quality, not 5 rounds for time. Or I would run the clock, but I'm like, I don't really care what your time is. It was very like, it was hard to get that concept because we're so used to being on the clock or so some kind of measurement all the time. But when you take that out of it, I just feel people didn't know how to pace themselves or didn't know what to do. Some people went really fast. Some people like went too slow. There's no clock. I'm going to take my time. No, just like a medium pace here. Like it's just very hard to find that balance if you just take that out of the picture. Yeah. So finding ways to, be more like introduce some structure to it, but get the effect that you want out of it, just to limit the amount of stress you have on yourself.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, I think that way of like every 4 minutes or every 5 minutes, execute on this amount of work. You want to have about 90 seconds to rest before the next round. People kind of wrap their heads around it, and that's worked really well for our gym. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying because we used to do ones. I put a 45-minute cap on it, and it'd be like, 20 minutes to 45 minutes. That's a long, that's a lot of wiggle room there. You want people to like move with some sort of like, they want to be kind of deliberate there. It's challenging. But I think getting back to your original point, and I've seen a lot of it where the epic walking, the long walks or the 4 or 5 walks a day that add up to
rucksack walks is the new one.
Me and Dave are going to try that here soon.
Just texted him last night. Yeah. I do those a reasonable amount, not too much. I'm not looking like, but I mean, just I feel like we walk like a good amount each day just because we're walking around the gym, and I'll walk my dogs a few times a day. So I just naturally get a lot of time on my feet. But I mean, some days if I'm on the floor a lot, if I'm walking around, like I'll notice it by the end of the day. I'm like, I'm tired of being on my feet. My feet hurt, my legs hurt. Like I just kind of feel achy, and it's just. Maybe when you're younger, like you just don't really think about it that much. But I feel you get older, like just like, oh my God, I'm tired.
Yep.
Or I know some people too, like if they work a job, right? And this is a smart way to do this is like, if they have a job and they're on their feet a lot, they notice like if I do too much running in the gym or time my feet, like I'm just really achy. So they might swap out a bike for the run some days because that's what their body needs. Like they just know their limit of how much I can run. And that's just being smart about how much stress you put on yourself. Yeah. You're still getting work, but it's more low impact. So it kind of varies per person.
To that point, like if you sit all day, then you might want to try to spend more time on your feet when you're working out. Mm-hmm. But one point I just wanted to make too, before we kind of end this is that I think, even that lower intensity, longer duration can get hard on your body. And that's what I'm feeling now after I think we've been in, Lexi and I have been doing this like 9-week weight training cycle, and it has been great, but every day's, it was around like 80 to 90 minutes, and both of us are just like so tired. And we will do this training, and then we'll
it's a lot of volume.
Yeah, we'll probably do like a 15 or 20 minute like lower intensity piece at the end. Sometimes we'll do a higher intensity, like 12 to 15 minutes, but that can beat your body up too. So I'm almost like, I can feel my body like craving CrossFit again. And I think, like we've said on here a lot, I know I've said it a lot, your body will talk to you. If you're just quiet, get out of your head, try to think like, okay, I feel off, I feel tired. What is it telling me I need? And it might be just to like back off everything and kind of do your own thing for a month too. But but your body will talk to you. It'll kind of tell you need a kick in the ass, whether you want it or not, or to back off a little bit, or like, I think I have a surgery coming up, so that time is coming anyways. But after that, I just feel like I want to be a part of a big community again. And I do want to like work out with people and hey, I want them to race me. I want them to I want them to push me. I want to like chase them. And it's a lot of fun, but there will come a time, after 3 to 4 months of that, where I'm like, okay, I just want to peace out and do my own thing, and I think you just have to listen to that and quit pushing through, because then that's where dysfunction starts. And then your body, then you can mess everything up, your blood work. If you just don't listen, you can mess up your body.
Here's one thing I'll piggyback on that, and where I see it happen. And if you're listening and this is you, and I've ran into this a lot. If you compete in CrossFit, say the open, or right now we have a lot of our level 2 guys doing, it's kind of like local comp season after the games. This is the hardest thing to do. After you peak out for something, say it's the open or quarterfinals or semis or whatever it is, people want to try and make up for all their mistakes or mistraining in the following subsequent 2 to 3 weeks. You will see them work out harder than they do all year after they just peaked for a competition or just did one, followed by an epic crash where they barely work out for 2 months. So my best recommendation is, after a really tough competition, it might be time for a week off, totally, of training, complete week off, like just walk, be active, come to the gym, maybe do like some light stuff, take a low pressure class, rather than at that point try to hammer the mistake or the overhead squat you missed or whatever it is, trying to fix that mistake and then completely crashing and burning, which is something I've done before. And then it's really after the open, I'll watch a lot of people do. They'll like come out white hot, and I'm like, guys, slow down for the next couple weeks. And they do the opposite. So if you're listening to this, that is the time to probably back off your intensity and then start chipping away at some skills, and then build back the intensity towards another event or a thing. Do not try right after it to fix all your mistakes.
I think it was funny. I remember doing, I think it was after like one of the sectionals or something like that back in like 2010 at the old Gahanna place. Like the weekend after, the Monday coming in, I did like Murph with a weight vest at the gym. Like, again, because you're like, I need to get into it. I need to grind. Like it wasn't good enough. Like I need more volume. Like when you said that, I was like, what do you mean?
I remember Ralph.
Like right now, I would never do that. Like I should have taken a few days off, or I just remember coming back in and doing, like, it wasn't even a class work. I was like, oh, I just need to do something hard. Like, I'm a dumbass.
My old boss, Ralph, he did pretty good at the sectional in 2010, but he was disappointed he didn't make it through to a regional. And then I remember he made a video, and it was like a 3-day epic run of, he was doing like all these legless rope climbs, walking on his hands, just doing wild stuff. And then I think the guy probably took like 2 months off training in general, after he basically put himself through another competition the day after. But it's what you want to do, but it's like, it's the opposite of what you should do. And if you're able to take that time off, really relax, chill out, you'll be motivated to get back after it. And I think mind, body, spirit, everything kind of flows together. And if you're able to like keep all that stuff in a healthy spot, you're going to feel a lot better and train a lot better. And
more isn't always better. Like, listen, be intuitive, listen to your body. If it needs a little break, give it a break.
Less isn't always better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you guys listening can take a few, I think everything, that we're talking about is, it's all shades of gray. So if you saw any of yourself in what we were talking about, try and take this and just really take it and think, how does this relate to me, and what mistakes have I made in the past, and where maybe I can pivot here a little bit and take little pieces of that, back home with me and just adjust my training to optimize it and not, constantly go through this roller coaster of burnout and resetting and restarting. But
Yeah.
yeah. All right, guys, we'll catch you next week.